Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts and YouTube.com/Rogue Matter. Podcast available wherever you download podcasts. Join the movement. Go Rogue. RogueMatter.com. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
It's been a terrible day.
It's not been good for you, but at least...
It's been terrible.
At least now you're here and you're doing this.
You know what? If this is like the highlight of my day, it's been a terrible day.
In the radio booth.
Yes. So, wow.
You are the Lord of the radio.
It's because I came to the radio booth today that it turned out to be terrible.
We've got a lot to talk about tonight.
I hope so. I hope it's got to be worth it.
We've got Kevin Sharp from FanBase Press. We basically have like a double whammy with Loki and with Black Widow. Black Widow hits theaters Friday. It will be the first film that I go see in theaters in 2 years.
Are you going on Friday?
I am going on Friday, yes. Friday, 12:30. I got tickets.
Well.
Say, when you don't have a real job, you can go at 12:30 on a Friday.
I suppose so.
That's one of the that's why we get into this business, isn't it? In order to like not have to.
I guess so.
Be stuck in an office from 9 to 5 and go see movies at 12:30.
That's why we get into this business to get free comps of movies, not so that we have to go running and pay $30,000 in ticket sales to go see a movie early, so that we could be the first to scoop all our friends and family in seeing a movie.
I think that's we definitely do that. But before Black Widow hits, we've got the final episode of Loki next week. So we're gonna double dip next week, and we're gonna double dip today. So we're gonna start off with Loki's Invariants and Gators. Oh my, episode 5. What was your reaction to the episode that aired this morning or late last night? If you were up, I think you were up. You watched them like super early, right?
Not this time.
Oh, okay. You slept like a normal human being, like through the night, actually?
Yeah, a fat lot of good it did me because I thought I was going to have a lot of energy today to be able to do everything I needed to do, but it just didn't.
It didn't pan out?
Everything turned to crap, like, almost immediately.
Yeah. Like you said, put it out the door, and then, like...
Should have stayed in bed.
Everything just dissolves.
Yes. Really should have stayed in bed. So, wait, what was your question?
My question was, what was your reaction? So last week, you did your Rogue Rage on episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
Is your Rogue Rage a continuation?
My Rogue Rage would be a continuation. I think it would be more nuanced this time, as in, I think the idea of Loki in general, the premise behind the show in general, is a very good premise, very interesting and unique premise. But I think they need to flesh it out, and I think they need to figure some things out and hash things out. It seems like this was like a really good idea someone had, and then they just went with it, and then they banged out a bunch of scripts. They're well-written scripts, you know, they're well-acted television shows, but some of it is like, what? Every now and then you just get stuck with it. Wait a minute, well, I mean, like, okay, you have a joke. Jokes are fine.
Yeah.
Alligator Loki is a good joke.
Alligator Loki's fantastic.
That didn't break anything. That didn't bother me at all about anything.
He's the new Baby Yoda.
No, he's not.
He is.
No, he's not. The old Loki, great. With Richard E. Grant, fantastic as usual.
Fantastic.
Kid Loki, who's from the comic books, from the Young Avengers,
yep.
Right? Basically, it's great. That's fine. Fantastic. So to have all these characters together and to have like President Loki, as they called him, and all the other Lokis or whatever, that was fine. That's great. It's a great premise, but everything with the time variance authority, it just seems like, every time they hit a dead end, they just add something new to it.
Yeah.
Like it's a great concept, but it's not very intricately thought out, so that whenever they hit a wall, they could just say, nah, that didn't happen. Everything's all right, But even for the longest time...
Yeah.
For the longest time, pruning someone meant that they were erasing them from the timeline.
Right.
So that they could correct the timeline. But now it turns out, after, quote, spoiler, after our Loki, after Loki 1, I guess you would call him, Tom Hiddleston's first Loki, after he got
better.
He didn't get better. It's just like it's after he gets pruned, then suddenly it's like, well, no energy ever really gets destroyed.
Right.
It's like, and so it's a flirtation with intricacy, but it's not really that intricate.
Yeah.
It's kind of front-loaded storytelling. So every time you hit a wall, you could just add a caveat to it, and then just decide there's a whole nother branch of your story that it's not that it wasn't real. We just haven't told you about it until now. So
sure,
that can work, but for the most part, for me, it doesn't. For me, it's kind of a head scratcher a lot of times, but it's fine. But I think if they had this and they did a couple more passes on the concept, fleshing out the concept, not the shows in themselves, but the concept behind a show.
Yeah.
Then it probably would have landed a little better.
We'll call that the official Hassan Godwin's Rogue Rage of the day. Here's the thing. I kind of agree with you in a lot of ways, though, right? I think that
What?
as a series...
Not supposed to agree with me.
No, I know. It's bad for business. But as a series, I think it's highly enjoyable. Like I'm enjoying it. And not from a popcorn level either. It's not like I'm going to see like a Fast 9 movie where you're just like, well, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this because... Sure, why not, right? Like,
I'm going to ride this out.
Right. It's more like, there's a lot of really great pieces to something here. Hiddleston's amazing. Sylvie is a fascinating character. Gator Loki is the new Baby Yoda. I don't care what you say. It's amazing. We got a brief glimpse of him. We will see him again.
Right.
Did you catch a lot of the Easter eggs? I was trolling Twitter today looking for people have found, because I don't like to do the work.
I caught some of them, but I don't know. I'm not.
Frog Thor is in there.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Trying to escape, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And there was a Thanos copter.
I didn't see the Thanos copter.
This is what I'm saying. I don't want to have to do the work, but other people, probably college students from the look of their profile picture, maybe high school or college students,
have
who have all the
out.
time in the world and no pressures or jobs or anything, can go and freeze frame everything and post it to Twitter, which ironically enough would be considered work nowadays because they're building their following. So they're probably actually doing a better job of working than us. But anyway, they found all these really great Easter eggs. So I thought that was and it's one of those episodes where if I was 18 years old, I would be like drilling deep to find them all. But I'm not. So. So thank you, Twitter users out there, for taking the work off my plate to do it. But no, the episode was extremely enjoyable. The series has been extremely enjoyable. They've gotten it to a point, however, where, and this is the problem when you do anything with time travel, right? So again, I'm going to harken back to my comic, The Mainstream, which was all about alternate universes and time travel. And one of the main caveats Talon Caldwell and I did when we discussed doing this book was we need to eliminate any possibility of head scratchers. Okay, we need to eliminate as best as possible anyone sitting there going contradictions, things that will then all of a sudden come back and go, wait a minute, I don't understand, because that's the kind of thing that, while yes, it's a detail thing, yes, you can enjoy this from a Tom Hiddleston perspective, from an actor's perspective, from a cool, high-concept perspective, from seeing Owen Wilson in an MCU film, or I call it a film, but obviously it's a TV show, but it's really like a really long film, and it's amazing having him in there. Like when he's in the car with Sylvie, and he's like, I'm really sorry about that. I'm like, man, if Owen Wilson apologizes for anything, I just want to like give him a hug and say, thank you, you're right, I'm sorry, because he's Owen Wilson.
All right. That's good. Now, explain something to me. Then,
Yeah.
Did Owen? We'd have to check it.
Yeah.
Didn't Owen Wilson have his temp pad on him when they pruned him?
That's a good question.
Because if Sylvie had her temp pad on her and she pruned herself, and the temp pad goes with you, which doesn't make any sense, that a temp pad would go with you into the void, into that nowhere space.
It makes sense.
No, it doesn't, because then someone would just come back out. Because it didn't take much to be able to leave. It wasn't like it was locked off, because Sylvie came in with her temp pad. She opened the door and let Mobius out. Right. So it's obviously not locked.
Right. What I would tell you is, previous to this, they would be wiping out realities. No one would have temp pads on them, so no one could be able to get back. But
everybody they prune ends up at that place.
Yes.
So if they're pruning their own people.
Well, yes, no, I mean, but obviously they weren't pruning their own people up until now, correct?
Well, some of them got pruned. Some of their own people.
Oh, I got you. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So why wouldn't they just be able to come back?
Maybe they did. Maybe they got eaten by that monster.
Okay. All right.
No.
Why would Mobius be able to come back? Like, theoretically, he would have his on him.
Yes. No. See but we can definitely explore that because I think you're absolutely right. It's something something we've actually seen. My point being is that
unless they made a point to show that he left it at his desk when he went off to. I mean, who knows?
Right.
But
My point being is that if we're talking about, let's say, the guard that got pruned in the Loki battle, that the no-name guard that we don't know, well, obviously. The answer is we don't know what happened to him. Did he come back? Did he not come back? Did he have his 10
But this is what I'm talking about, like fleshing out an idea.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you. As a whole. There's lots of these head-scratching moments, like Miss Minutes. We talked about this before the show, and I had to legitimately ask you, and I'm like, why? Spoilers to anybody who hasn't seen the episode yet. Why is it that she now needs to know, the secret of the timekeepers? Is it because last episode she was as surprised that they weren't real?
Slayer, what's her name?
Sylvie?
No, the Goo. What's her name? The
guard?
No, the head woman of the
Miss Minutes.
No, Miss Minutes is the little clock.
Oh.
You're talking about the wrong.
I saw a poster that had Miss Minutes that she was called Miss Minutes.
No, that's the clock.
Okay,
it's a little clock thing.
All right. Let me look this up here. I'm gonna look at the cast.
Because the voice is done by Tara Strong.
Okay, all right. Well, let me see because I saw a Marvel poster, and that's why I kept calling her Miss Minutes. But you could be completely right here.
But her name is Ray Slayer or something. Raina Slayer. She's got a weird name.
Is it Ravonna?
No.
That's who we have though.
This is very bad.
That's who we have here. I'm gonna full cast and crew. That's why we're here. This
is very bad for us.
Why would it be bad?
We should know.
Renslayer, yes. Renslayer. Okay.
Renslayer is the head woman. Miss Minutes is the little helper.
Okay, so that poster I saw was
it's like the little paper clip, the annoying little Windows paper clip that shows up.
Sure. So Renslayer, why if Renslayer, why was Renslayer all of a sudden being like, I need all the files on the timekeepers? Was she surprised? Because they didn't do a good job.
Yeah, she was surprised. That's what I'm saying. That's what I said last week. It's like, wait a minute now. If the revelation is that we're all variants.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. And I'm not. I swear to God, I'm not like talking about. Well, I already knew that. But I mean, one of my logic, conclusion. One of my logical conclusions is that all of these people must be variants because this place exists. This place exists out of time.
Right.
It exists out of the timeline basically, so that they can monitor everything. So that means a version of each of these people exists somewhere in time, and they've all come here.
Yeah.
So like, for them to to be traumatized by the news that they were once real people and they weren't always part of the Time Variance Authority,
right?
Or that they weren't invented by the Keepers of Time. To me, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, you're telling me that the entire time that this place has been around, not one of them has gone, wait a minute, who were we before? Like, no, I mean, haven't you done that? Haven't you sat home and went and just off of a whim because you were bored, like, how the hell did I get here? What am I doing here? What am I doing right now? Why is me? Why am I, why do I like spaghetti? Like little weird, stupid things like that. And it just, what happens is, and you shouldn't overthink these things, absolutely. But what happens when you do is that you start going, well, you haven't answered the question that normal people would ask themselves. If this place is this intricate and it's this important, your main people should not be easily derailed by information like that. Remember Mobius when they went on that first little mission with Loki?
Right.
And Mobius was like, he's lying to us. Like, he saw right through Loki.
Right.
So it's like, that to me suggests that this guy has been there.
He's very perceptive, yeah.
He's been there, done that so often. He's seen all the angles to the point where he's like, I know Loki so well, and I know reality so well. Do you remember,
if he had an audience with the Timekeepers yet? I don't think he ever actually got in front of them.
Doesn't matter.
No, it does matter, just to answer your question, because if he never got in front of, like, to your point, wouldn't he just sit in front of the Timekeepers and be like, well, this is not real? These are clearly robots.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like it wasn't even the timekeepers, because I don't think he even ever got to the timekeepers. He never got there.
No, he didn't.
He got derailed by the notion that he was a variant.
Yes.
So you're telling me the guy who's that many steps ahead of our main character,
right,
is completely undone by the idea like, hey, did you know that that tomorrow's alternate side of the street parking for Nyack?
Right.
Then you'd be like, what? And then your whole world would come apart. It's like, wait a minute, you've never come across that notion before?
Right.
You've never suggested that to yourself before? And things like that are, when they're set up to be like big revelations,
right,
you're like, okay, you guys didn't think this through, really, because that's not really much of a revelation. To me,
the head scratcher was Renslayer this episode. I'm on board with your head scratcher last episode. I think this episode to me is, wait a minute, so Renslayer has supposedly seen the timekeepers before, and now she just realized.
Well, seemingly she knew they weren't real, but then she's still worshiping them. But now she wants to get to the bottom.
It didn't make sense. All of a sudden, right? That's the thing, because even though she knew they weren't real, because that was my impression from last episode, coming into this episode, she knew they weren't real. So if she's known they're not real this whole time, why is she now all of a sudden be like, I need all the records?
And yeah.
So massively great Richard E. Grant moment when he's doing the magic, when he looks like the traditional.
There is that other part of it also. If there are so many variants of Loki that there are literally several thousand versions of Loki.
Yeah.
Because basically Loki is not, as pre-established, Loki is not the son of Zeus. The biological son of Zeus and Hera.
Right.
No, what's her name? What's his mother's name?
They just kept calling her Mother.
No, she's got a name. She's got a name. But anyway, man, we're so bad at this. We're so terrible at this.
Don't keep calling it out. Like, I don't think anyone would care as long as.
Oh, they're saying it right now. They're destroying us in the comments. It doesn't matter. She's got it's one of those Scandinavian names that sounds really harsh for a woman, but she's got one of those names. But anyway, she's not a biological son. He's not a biological son of Zeus.
This says Frigg. Odin's wife is Frigg.
Frigga. I think it's Frigga.
Also known as Freya. Frigga.
So.
Freya.
Don't do that, dude. Don't culturally bash the Scandinavians.
I'm not culturally bashing anything.
You're culturally bashing the Scandinavians.
My honest attempt at pronouncing a name.
Leave the Scandinavians alone. Scandinavian lives matter. So. Anyway.
I love that joke.
Anyway.
You've also now been canceled. It's amazing.
I was never on. They can't take me off if I've never been on.
They can't take you away from something.
No.
They're like, people actually have to know who you are.
I did cancel a lot of stuff today. Yeah. Today is my day for canceling things.
That's a good point.
So that basically anybody could be the adopted son of Odin, right? And they could be a Loki. That's why there's a black Loki. That's why there's an alligator who's Loki. Right. That's why there's a frog who's Thor. There's so many variants. So like to see Richard E. Grant and to determine that Richard E. Grant is actually Tom Hiddleston version of Loki, but old.
Right.
Kind of threw me. It's like, wait a minute. That's if everything is meta and non-linear, then you can't just look at an old version of yourself and go, hey, you're old me. Out of all the different variants there, you're gonna say that this is the old version of yourself,
right? And
then wonder like, well, how are you still alive since all of us seem to end up killed by Thanos?
Yes,
which apparently is not true,
right? Because
of all the variants.
Yes,
that are
I
there.
agree with that too. Yes.
So like that's what I'm talking about. Like that science when you try to.
Yes. But that goes back to my point too, where when I was trying to do an alternate reality story, I sat there saying, let's try to eliminate things like that, right? Like, as cool as it could be to say, hey, it would be cool if this happened. It'd be cool if this happened. It leaves the door open for you to start saying, oh, wait a minute, that science doesn't make sense. Establishing the science in your story.
It's like Highlander, when they explained Highlander that they were all aliens, and you were like, wow, it made more sense when we didn't know how the hell these guys were immortal. I ruined it for you. In the sequel to Highlander, in the original Highlander, it was a kind of an unknown mystery why these guys were immortal.
Okay.
And, there's a very famous line, and asked Sean Connery how did it all happen. And he's like, why does the sun come up? And then, okay, that's the answer, right?
Yes.
But that's fine. If we don't know, it's just a phenomenon that happens. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So then the second movie, they're like, oh, they're all aliens. From the planet...
Was the guy from Ancient Aliens on? With the
yes, he should have been. That would have made...
He just, popped out?
That would have made the movie perfect. That would have actually made the movie...
I'm just saying, it's possible.
It's possible. You're all aliens. And they were all aliens from the past, and they were all sent to Earth as a punishment. And then the last alien, at the last of them that survives, gets to go back home. That's how they redid the science, and it was universally hated.
I would imagine so.
Everybody. It's like, that's why. It's like, it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, people may come to you and say, hey, Dolce, how does Sire work? But you got to really think deeply. Do I want to explain that to people?
That's happened before, too, where people will have questions that you just don't anticipate, or you just haven't, actually taken the path down every possible path and journey to answer these questions. And they'll be like, what about this? And I'm like, it's a good question. I don't know. And that's okay. If you're it's not okay, period, but it's okay if you're developing a story.
Yeah.
It's another thing if you go to print, you go to video with it.
Who's like the best example of that? Like in the comic book situation, I'd say one of the best, if not the best example of that would be Logan, right? For the longest time when I was young,
yeah.
I'm older than you, so I was reading comics a little longer. And for the longest time when I was young, we didn't know where Logan came from. We didn't know where he got his claws from. We didn't know, we didn't know how old he was. It was speculated he was like maybe 100 years old or something like that.
Right.
And then eventually, as time went on, we got multiple possible origin stories for Logan that all end up getting debunked or decanonized.
Sure.
Until Barry Windsor-Smith's Weapon X comes along. Now, when BWS's miniseries came along, everybody was still skeptical. If I remember it correctly, everybody was still skeptical. Like, this could be this could be like an outside of canon kind of thing. It could be what was their imprint? Was it Epic?
Epic was
Marvel,
but it was a Marvel. It was Marvel Comics Presents. So
yeah, but it still could have been like their equivalent,
like a what if or something
their
like
equivalent
that,
of Elseworlds. It's this in this before Ultimate before Ultimates,
sure.
Right? So we could just do whatever we want here and just say that this in this universe, in this iteration of Wolverine, this is how he got his claws and everything. And eventually that just became canon. They just canonized it. And then they talked about it, and then they talked about who put the adamantium in him, and that they revealed that Sabretooth and Wolverine were brothers because for a long time they just hated each other.
Right.
And because they were the two characters with the healing factors, right?
Right.
So they could just keep trying to kill each other.
Yes.
So now we have Wolverine. Wolverine's all fleshed out. We understand what Wolverine is. We've got multiple movies. We got multiple books. We got cartoons and everything Wolverine is. Wolverine's still a great character.
Yep.
I would say he was a way better character when we didn't know anything about him.
I think that's the case for every character, right?
But that's what I'm saying.
You can fill in the blanks yourself. You actually just brought me back, which is funny, though, because you just brought me back to being, I guess, probably around 12 years old. Summer of 12 years old, because it's summertime out. It's also, god-awful out earlier today and tonight.
Let's not even talk about it.
And remembering the Larry Hama run of Wolverine.
Larry Hama, wow.
Where they were taking the snippets from Barry Windsor-Smith and debunking them. It was almost like watching X-Files. Remember X-Files?
Mm-hmm.
Where
that was going to be my other example.
The first 3 seasons was them building up to something, and then the first 4 seasons were them building up to its aliens, and then for one season, when he met Krichkov, I think his name was, or whatever his name was, there was one character who was like, nah, man, it was all a disinformation campaign, and Mulder believes that. Now, again, you can do that because what they ended up doing was leading into the movie, they basically go, oh, no, it turns out that character wasn't genuinely lying to Mulder. It's what he believed, but then the truth really was this. And you can get away with all that stuff. But again,
sometimes for a while.
Circling back to what we're talking about with the Loki discussion, though, at the end of the day, we want to.
But when you have a concept like the Time Variance Authority, concepts like that need to be fleshed out and detailed as to what the rules are for dealing with them. But then the dangerous part of it is those concepts can never fully be explained.
Right.
For them to be able to maintain their mystique.
Right.
So it's a really fine line of explaining too much and then explaining too little.
Yeah.
Because if you explain too little and then you just it seems like you're just pulling things out of whole cloth.
Yep.
Whenever you're able to go around the rules, you know? If the entire series is like, oh, you don't want to get pruned.
Right.
And then they do it and then you realize, you just go to you just go to Junk Planet. And then maybe you run away from a storm, and then you'll be all right.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so that's not even a bad thing.
Right.
So now, why don't all these guys escape? Why don't we help all these Lokis escape?
Right.
What if these Lokis escape, and now the timeline starts to branch off again? What happens?
Right.
So it starts to collapse in on itself.
Yes. It is. It's that fine line
under its own weight.
How cool would it be to have a scene where there's 100 different Lokis all fighting each other, which was friggin' cool. How cool is it to recreate Baby Yoda in the form of Gator Loki, which they did.
Which they didn't.
I want a Gator Loki.
You can have a Gator Loki, but
Gator
it's
Loki.
Not replacing Baby Yoda. It's not a replacement. It's not just as Baby Yoda was not a replacement for Groot. Alligator Loki is not a replacement for Baby
Where would you
Yoda.
rank them? Baby Groot,
Baby
Yoda.
Groot, Baby Groot, Baby Yoda, and then maybe I don't even like the alligator
You don't like
Loki.
the alligator?
Nah, he's alright.
That alligator was awesome.
Okay, he did a lot. He was
I know.
useful.
He was very he bit off one of Loki's hand.
Yeah,
I mean that was.
It's very useful, but it's still he's a freaking alligator. And they just kept throwing him at people.
And the little kid held him like a baby. It was very cute.
Yes. Well, that's one thing. Then he tells you the backstory of his variants is that he killed Thor.
Yeah.
You want to see that. That's a story. It's like, okay, explain that to me or have a conversation because that seemed to move Tom Hiddleston's version of Loki, right? So that get more into that. Now I know there may be another season of it. They're going to do more with the character. Sure, that's fine. I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of that. But
I don't think they're going to though.
Who knows?
I think this is.
What can they do with Tom? Once they if they redeem Tom Hiddleston,
they
to
will.
The point where he's a kind of a good guy Loki. What can they do with Loki? Where does the character go once he's been redeemed?
Well, I think he integrates into the rest of the Marvel Universe, so that the next big crisis, the multiverse crisis, he can be there and he can actually be an ally.
We'll see.
Last point I want to touch on from this. What is your take on the quote-unquote romance that has been established? Because I got to be honest, kind of weirded me out. I know in real life she's an actress and she is not actually Loki in female form.
Well, thank God.
But given this establishment, gotta be honest, kind of weirded out by the fact that he's fallen in love with himself.
I mean, look, after Cersei and Jaime Lannister, I'm really not freaked out by anything.
That should be more reason why you should be freaked out. You're like, we've seen this.
Well, I mean, self-love.
I appreciate the kissing your sister analogy because
love thyself, I guess.
It's essentially the same thing in a
but
way.
It is played for the weirdness of it. Like the two of them are obviously weirded out by it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, but they play it off that they're weirded out because they've never felt like this for anybody, not because it's for themselves. At least that's my take. It's more like one of those like, wow, I'm really bad at this because I've just never loved before. It's like, sweetheart, you're still like.
I don't know, but is it weird to love yourself? Is that kind of strange? Is a female version of you in another dimension?
Yeah, that's icky. I thought about that. That is exactly the run that I thought to myself. It's like I just think there's some sort of like quasi-incestuous thing.
You get to love yourself. You're supposed to love yourself, right? Didn't
no one loves me
Kurt
more than
Cobain
me.
say that he loved himself better than you?
Yes, and I agree.
And he knows it's wrong, but what can he do? That's the whole line.
Loves me as much as me, but that's
there you go. So now you just need a female version of you, and you would be in hog heaven, man.
I think there's something just weird about it. I don't know.
If you're talking about a show with an alligator version of Loki, an alligator with a hat with horns on it,
That's awesome.
Then yeah, but we're past.
It literally just flashed across the screen too.
We're past weird. We're way past weird at this point.
Are we though? I don't think we are. All right, what do you guys think? Let us know your thoughts. We didn't even get to play If I Was a Showrunner. Well, actually, let's not even go to commercial. Let's ask if I were the showrunner. If you were the showrunner,
like is that like a segment? If I was the showrunner.
If you were the showrunner, how would you end this series?
This is another iteration of your incessant attempt to get speculation theater going by not calling it speculation theater.
You quoted, and I'm quoting you here, because we had our guest Darren Sanchez on, and he goes, "Oh, you should really call this segment If I Were the Showrunner." And you go, "Yes, that would make it better. I can do that." So I'm literally just going by what you affirmed.
I don't remember that, so it didn't happen.
We will replay that video next time. No, but if you were the showrunner, how would you end it?
I don't want to know how it's going to end.
I'll tell you.
Because I want to see how they end it, so then I can be in my chair going, oh, that's how they end it.
Okay.
That's the pleasure that I get from it. But by constantly doing that crap, it makes it more and more difficult to be able to be satisfied with the ending that you're given, or to be intrigued by the ending that you're given, because you spent so many times trying to Mephisto the whole damn thing.
If I was the showrunner, I will tell you how I wouldn't end it. I would not end it
with this segment
with Kang the Conqueror, which is what people are floating around out there. I would not end it. I would end it almost the way WandaVision ended it, where everything was contained
without Mephisto.
Yeah,
with everybody was upset.
Well, because that's the thing, though, right? Like, everyone was upset because they didn't get Mephisto, but Mephisto was really only vaguely hinted at. And people only really wanted Mephisto so they could flex their comic book knowledge muscles of like, I know who Mephisto is, so that the newbie.
You can't say that. You don't know exactly why.
No,
people...
I know. I don't need to know it's a fact, but I know it's true. It's one of those things where people were like, well, I know who Mephisto is, and some newbie who's coming into this would be like, who's Mephisto? I don't understand. Because they wouldn't understand, because Mephisto was never set up to be the big bad. So I loved how WandaVision ended. I love that it wasn't Mephisto, and I want Loki to follow suit. I want there to have been something that was placed within these 6 episodes where I sit there and go, oh, that makes sense, because it was within the confines of the story. I don't want it to be like, I am Kang the Conqueror, and I'm here to tell you I'm the one that's really been behind it. And you're like, well, who the hell are you? Where have you been for 6 episodes? Why have you never even been mentioned? I don't want it to end that way.
Neither do I. So fair enough.
We are just agreeing. How do you guys want it to end? What have you guys thought up to this point? Are you as confused as I was when Renslayer now all of a sudden didn't know that the time keepers were fake?
Not
a
well thought out premise.
But I wasn't quite sure. But how great would it be to have Owen Wilson apologize? All of these questions and more in the comment feed. When we come back, we sat down with Kevin Sharp. He is from FanBase Press. He's also done a whole bunch of writing for some reputable places like Sci-Fi Wire and things like that. But he is going to be on talking Black Widow, the comics you need to know, heading into the theaters, hopefully the theaters, because I want to pay $30 this weekend when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Joined now by Kevin Sharp, contributor to our show. The last time you were on was right before Joker. So it's been a while since we've had you on, but it's also been a while since we've actually had stuff we can, kind of concretely discuss in terms of what is happening.
Think of how different the world looked in October 2019 when we had that conversation.
Well, last week I actually told Hassan I was angry at 2019 me just because he doesn't know what's coming. So I'm bitter at him. I'm bitter and angry at him, especially around the time Joker came out, because we're sitting there going, we're looking forward to Rise of Skywalker, looking forward to C2E2 in February, looking forward to Black Widow.
Oh yeah, Yeah.
Look, all of these things we were looking forward to in 2019. So I hate that guy. I hate 2019 Mike, because
I miss 2019 Hassan, because I flirted with optimism back then.
That's right.
There was a little bit of a possibility that things were going to get better and things were on a good track. But
she dropped it. She dropped her number to you this year, so maybe call her.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see about that. Well, I don't know.
I think
there might be too much bad blood between us. I don't know. We'll see.
So we were talking off camera too. Kevin, what was our predictions? I think you said.
Okay, so I may be a little fuzzy on this, but I'm willing to bet $1 that I'm correct. The prediction at the end of the conversation was how much would Joker make at the box office?
Yeah.
And I believe Hassan said 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, you and I said 40, and you were higher than me, but we were both in the 5 figures, not 6.
Yeah.
And actually, the answer is almost to 7.
Yeah. No, I think it did make $1 billion, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did.
It was $1 billion movie.
So
I don't know why we were so. Why were we so down on it?
I'm gonna go back. After we're done, I'm gonna go back to the tape because I have it. It's there.
I don't think we were down on it. I think it was a question of it's R-rated. There are no superheroes. It was a complete unknown quantity.
Sure.
And so we had no test case to.
And it was also from a guy who basically said, I don't like superhero movies, and I only made this so I could remake Taxi. But in order to get a film greenlit, I have to do a superhero film to do it.
Taxi Driver, because the other way would be hilarious.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it was I think that was a bad take from that guy, to launch your movie.
No, I appreciate his take. I appreciate his honesty in this world, because he's basically sat there saying, I can't make an original film that's not a superhero film right now because nothing will get. I can't raise money to do it the way I want to do it otherwise. Although now he could take the money he made from Joker and make whatever film he wants.
You could say you appreciate his position. That's great, but I think marketing you had we made a movie together, and just before our movie came out, I said, I don't really like the genre that it's in that's coming out, and I don't really like the fans of the genre. Whatever I said that kind of skews to a negative, you'd probably be like, why would you say that 2 weeks before your movie just came out?
Publicist me would sit there and be like, I would look like Mike Myers on SNL when he was paired up with Kanye West. I'd be like, what did you just?
Yeah. What? Yes. And I'm standing here now. You've just destroyed.
Our podcast listeners can't see the fake smile. I got.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is, if you could tell your 2019 self anything, it would be Joker box office.
Yes.
If we could travel back right now
and invest in Bitcoin.
And in
that order.
And don't do live broadcast with Kanye West.
Well, that one, but that's 2005 me, and 2005 me had no shot of that anyway.
That's something that could be repeated no matter how far into the future we go.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
All right, so let's do.
It's been bad for everybody.
Let's move forward to 2021 us, even though it should have been 2020 us. And Kevin, we bring you on. You're an expert on the source material that a lot of these films are derived from, and we've got a Black Widow solo film coming out. Obviously, fans of the MCU know who Black Widow is, and she's been portrayed many times. And spoilers, she dies in Avengers Endgame, so we're not going to get to see her in terms of going forward, or at least we think we will not be able to see her going forward in any future sense of what is happening here. But we get to go back into her past a little bit. It introduces a series of characters that would be familiar to the comic book audience, but not necessarily to the movie audience, including David Harbour's Red Guardian. What can you tell us based on your knowledge of the comics, who we're going to be seeing in this film, and your prediction? Again, it's not you haven't seen it yet, so you don't know, but what your prediction of who these characters are based on what you know from the source material.
Well, the first thing I should say is that anybody who's a fan of the MCU Black Widow, the comics Black Widow is not like that until kind of recent years. Like, you should be looking at, if you like either the character and or Scarlett Johansson as the character, I would tell people, look at the more recent series, like the current series by Kelly Thompson and Elena Casagrande.
Mm-hmm.
is very fun. There was a series by Mark Waid and Chris Samnee a few years ago. You want to go kind of in the 2010s and up to get something resembling the screen Black Widow.
Yeah.
The comics Black Widow, here's fun trivia for you guys. Hawkeye and the Black Widow were both Iron Man villains in the Silver Age. That's how they were introduced. They were teaming up against Iron Man. So the whole Black Widow Hawkeye relationship, that's where it starts with them as bad guys. So that's a very different, she doesn't even look like the character in the movies. It's hard to know exactly because the MCU takes such liberties. They stay true, but they also kind of go their own way. I think we can all agree. So looking at just based on the one trailer that I've seen, the Red Guardian, you guys may have read more about this than I have. The Red Guardian in the comics was her husband in Russia. This is pre-Avengers, pre-superhero Black Widow. It didn't look like that. I mean, it's hard. Maybe there's a plot synopsis out there that I just haven't seen, but I never saw anything about that being the case. Yeah. In that movie. In the comics, the thing was, after she's a bad guy, then she becomes in the late 60s, early 70s, she's with Daredevil. And it's almost like Batman Catwoman in that she's not a hero, but it's kind of I don't even want to say flirty, but kind of a friend villain, anti-hero. Yep. And then she's on a team called the Champions, which Marvel readers from the 70s, there's a current Champions series, but the original run is made up of characters that have no team. So it's like Black Widow, Ghost Rider, Hercules, Iceman when he's off the X-Men. It's like Marvel took every random stray character and said, let's just make a team. She's on there, then she's on the Avengers. And so what do we know about this? It's a prequel, obviously. Yep. It looks like, so her sister is in it, played by Florence Pugh. And I wanted to ask you guys, are you excited for a Black Widow solo movie?
I would be more excited if I didn't already know the outcome, right? There's something about going into something kind of already knowing the ending to it that is an obstacle. It's not one that can't be overcome, but it's almost like putting a roadblock up, before you even leave the driveway, right? You're just kind of, I got to get out here. There's a speed bump, like literally at the end of my driveway now. It's going to be kind of a pain. I'll get over it, but now I'm not as excited to leave the driveway as I was prior to it.
Yeah, it's a little unfair. The question is fair. The answer is unfair because it's like, because this is going to be the first Marvel movie in 2 years. So I'm excited for it for that reason. I don't necessarily. I think I would have been happy to go see it just to see what just to see what the intricacies of her backstory are as far as they're concerned. But I can't answer that honestly as to whether or not I'd be honestly excited for a Black Widow movie if things were normal. Like I can't wait to go see this. In the space when there's like 10 other movies out at the same time. Right. I mean, we have such a drought going on now that any new, content was like, this is going to be great, I
mean, that's the other thing too, right? Like we're part of the excitement of the MCU, and this is by design and reflects how it was in the comics, is you're watching also to see what's coming next. In this particular instance, while there are cameos supposedly from certain people and from some folks we've seen in other movies and TV shows and are going to see upcoming, it's kind of hard to kind of piece together what's coming next when the character doesn't make it out of one of the movies. And this is Marvel and this is comic books, so no character's truly dead. But as Hassan and I have kind of discussed over the last few weeks, these actors are getting old, and eventually you really you can't bring them back. You could bring her back; she's still viable, and she's still, to a point where it's not going to make much difference in terms of the visuals. She still looks the part, but she's dead. So no, I'm not as excited as I'm just not as excited as I think I would be for something new like Shang-Chi, who's coming out in July.
I think one thing you brought up, kind of the problem with prequels in general, but I think one thing for me is that with this character, it's at this point in movie history, and if we just start from the 90s and go forward, don't even have to go back too deep in history, the secret agent trained at a young age in a secret organization to be a killer, and then past comes back to haunt them. It's kind of just for me, and it's nothing against Scarlett or the character or putting a female lead movie out there. It's more just like,
yeah.
From The Long Kiss Goodnight to Jason Bourne to Atomic Blonde to on. It's just kind of a sense of, I wish they had spotlighted a different character.
Yeah. The sister who's in this, is she in the comics?
Yeah, so they're not biological sisters. Or, I mean, I don't know in Marvel cinematic universe.
Yeah.
They were both quote unquote sisters from this program called the Red Room, where they're trained as children. You see some clips in the trailer of them as little kids.
Yeah.
Kind of in this school. That's where they're from. Now, I don't know in the movie version what they're I'm going to guess the Red Guardian is not her husband, but that's, I don't want, after the Joker, I don't want to make any predictions.
No. It's predictions sure to go wrong. We're good.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's a
hang a lantern on it. It's okay.
$1 billion.
But yeah, it's so you know, I think for me, it's the same issue. If you said instead of Black Widow, we're having a Jeremy Renner Hawkeye movie, I would be kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I like those characters, but I like them better on a team than, I really want to see a Hawkeye solo adventure.
Yeah, well, you're going to get a Hawkeye TV show, so you'll at least
with the also with the Kate Bishop Hawkeye. So at least it's not just going to be Jeremy Renner shooting arrows at bank robbers. There's some more meat to it. If you said a Black Widow Disney Plus series, and we could swap out and say, like, without, obviously you'd have to change it dramatically, but you said there's a Loki feature film and a Black Widow Disney Plus series, I'd say, yeah, I'm more interested in that combination than this combination.
What's your take, not including the episode that aired today? So going up to episode 4, what's your take on Loki up to episode 4?
Now, I watched 4 today just for you guys. I started it super early just in case, so I wasn't spoiled. I don't know what you guys have talked about with the other Marvel shows, so I may be treading well-trodden ground here. But I kind of appreciate how each thing is its own thing, how they all feel so completely different. And Loki at the start, I'm like, wow, this is kind of a funky combination of, Rick and Morty, Doctor Who, Brazil, Time Bandits. It's just like, well, I didn't see that coming, but cool. It kind of leveled off for me interest-wise around the 3rd episode, which felt more Mandalorian. And that's not an insult. That's just having started in such a weird, fresh, interesting place to get kind of a standard sci-fi adventure episode. It's just a little, it's one of those things where we've been spoiled, where if you say something is, I'm going to use air quotes for the listeners, good, that's looked at as kind of a letdown. Right. It's a good show. And I won't say anything about episode 4 because I don't know who's seen it or not.
But I will agree with you. It did, to put it briefly, it did get episodic very quickly. It went from high content to, just to, adventure of the week.
Right.
Within maybe 2 episodes, so I totally get what you're saying there. That's still not a complete negative.
No.
But it, went from, it's prompting me a lot of stuff to, okay, that's what we're getting, So, I think we're over the promise of what it could be, and we're just dealing with what it is at this point.
I of course disagree.
You disagree?
Oh, I definitely do. Yeah, no, and
wait, meaning that you love it or don't like it?
No, I think everything about it is unique, and so getting a standalone, Mandalorian type episode in episode 3 it fit to me, and I actually enjoyed the fact that we got to delve into the fact that we thought we were watching a Loki show, meaning Tom Hiddleston, and what we got was a Loki show, meaning many iterations of the character. So that to me, I thought was something that held up.
I guess by the time this airs, 5 will be out. But I will just say, right now, sitting here, I loved 4. I loved 4.
All right.
And I'll just
bold statement, and I love it.
I'll 1 and 4 are my favorite episodes. There, I'll put it that way.
What's in your reading list these days, and what do you think in terms of the stuff that will be coming, kind of the big and small screen, that people should be keeping an eye out for?
Pull list. My favorite current comic is Department of Truth from Image, written by James Tynion, and illustrated by Martin Simmons. And the closest comparison I can make to this is imagine a batshit insane version of the X-Files. Imagine a story that makes the X-Files look like, Law and Order. That's how.
Oh my God.
That's how out there this thing is.
Okay.
And Martin Simmons is almost channeling 1980s Bill Sienkiewicz, and it's just such a treat and so weird. I love it. I also wanted to give a shout out to a series that just ended, which was called Marvel. Gosh, they certainly make it easy to keep track. Marvel was an anthology.
Published by DC, right?
Yeah, that was it. It's an anthology series where it's just a bunch of random creators, and each creator tells like a 3 to kind of 5-page story, and it's like a jukebox of greatest hits from all across Marvel continuity, where creators who don't really work on Marvel comics just are set free to tell whatever story you want to tell. And it just came out in an oversized, for those of us who've been reading comics for a while, back what used to be known as Treasury Comics. They just put this book out in a Treasury edition graphic novel, and I will give that my highest recommendation.
Okay.
Marvel's with an S is Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross.
Right.
Marvel without an S, Kurt Busiek is kind of the grandfather of this series.
Sure.
And Alex Ross did all the covers, but then each issue is a jukebox of different creators. And I thought it was just, with any anthology, you're going to like some stories better than others, of course. I love this book, though. For anybody who's a Marvel history geek, check it out.
I'm trying to Google it, and it's like trying to Google the band Live.
Right.
Type in Live, and it's like, Live comes up. Then you're like, well, Live music, and it's like, well, Live music comes up. You're like, Live the band. And it's like, oh man, I'll have to check that out. I've definitely, I've got that Marvel Unlimited subscription now, so hopefully.
I know that some of them are on there. I don't think the whole book is on there yet. There are 6 issues, but as of when we're recording this, I think they had the first 3.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely check it out. What have you guys been enjoying, by the way?
I've been reading nothing but Kickstarter books, actually. So Ned, Lord of the Pit, from Jim Calafieri. I highly recommend it. And he's kickstarting. He's still got another day or 2 left to go. So he's got the 2nd volume up. So go check that out. And yeah, I've been like consuming a lot of Big Dog Inc., a lot of indie Kickstarter books as of late. I have to get over to the comic book store. I have to. I haven't been there in like 2 months. So I have my Marvel stockade awaiting for me. All the X books. The X books have been very good.
Yeah, I've been rereading Powers of 10 and House of X, just to go through it again, even though because now they've altered the story tremendously.
Yeah.
Because it's now ongoing and it's not a limited series. So now, who knows where it's going to go. So I've just been trying to reacquaint myself with it. And also Invincible. I've been catching up on Invincible because I've missed several issues of it. So that's what I've been reading lately. And that's mainly because I'm a poser. That's mainly because of the TV show. Well, I'm trying to brush up on my lexicon knowledge.
I never read the book. But because of the TV show, I was like, let me give it a shot. I got it on, it's like
me neither.
Let me check it out.
That's a problem. That is the problem.
Let me check it out.
Hey, me neither. So we're all on the same.
The Boys is another one too, where I'm actually reading the comic, and I had read some of the comic like way many years earlier. I recognized the cover, so I probably read like the first 2-3 issues of The Boys when it first came out way back when. Didn't think it was that great. The series is fantastic.
Yeah.
And we have a new season coming out. Obviously, I think I would say later this year. They haven't announced exactly when, but I know they've been filming. So you almost have to expect it to be out at some point. So, that's definitely something.
Did anybody watch Jupiter's Legacy real quick?
Oh yes.
Yeah, we watched it.
Okay.
We went through that. Now, Jupiter's Legacy, we had Tyler Mane on the show also, who was probably the most interesting character on the show, believe it or not. I was a big fan of the book, so I actually enjoyed the series. I enjoyed the series just because it was cool to see it up on there, and I like Mark Miller. I'm rooting for him. I was rooting for the Millerverse, but
it's funny that, I mean, the timing for it was obviously not great with all those other shows that had been on, but beyond that, if you just slapped me awake at 3 a.m. and said, give me 3 Mark Miller properties to adapt right now, I don't even think Jupiter's Legacy would have been in my top 5.
Yeah.
I like the comic, but I'm saying if you said, we want to make something that's fresh and weird and cool for the screen, I wouldn't have gone there.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny because they didn't actually go there. They decided to not adapt the actual material and create something original around a property that no one knows anything about, which probably is why it did not get renewed in the typical fashion.
Yeah, right after it. So if you want to talk about predictions, like the week I said, I think it will be renewed. that I think that day they said no, it's not, and I think mostly because I said it would be. They were like, all right,
Hassan KOD that.
Make the call.
He KOD that. He did that right and proper.
A red light goes on in the Netflix conference room as soon as you say that.
Like pull the switch. Everyone's out of a job now. Thanks to you can all thank this guy.
My last question for you, Kevin, switching back to Marvel real quick. Black Widow is just the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, everything with COVID got shifted around. We've got 2 other Marvel films coming out. We've got Shang-Chi. Some say Song-Chi, actually. I read that it's pronounced Song-Chi, and then other people I've spoken to who are of Asian descent, they're like, no, it's Shang-Chi. So I don't know how it's supposed to go. I'm giving my best shot there. And we have the Eternals coming out. Out of those 2 films, and we'll have you on when it's closer to Eternals time, because good Lord knows we know nothing about that.
That's a whole other,
we know nothing about that movie.
Can you count Spider-Man also for this year as a Marvel movie?
Yeah, but I'm talking about the 2 unknowns. We have Spider-Man's going to make $1 billion, right? We can just kind of we can put that in there.
Okay.
Which will be the more impactful film in the zeitgeist? Prediction sure to go wrong. Shang-Chi or the Eternals?
Shang-Chi.
Ooh,
I don't even have to think about that.
Really? So you think more people are going to be like, it's gonna make a bigger pop culture imprint?
You have a perfect storm of events like you had around the Black Panther, in that you have a representation that you haven't had before in these movies.
Yeah.
You've got something that people can, I know people like to be challenged, but they also like the familiar. And a martial arts movie is a kind of a comfortable situation where the Eternals is just a giant unknown.
Right.
You can't say, oh, that looks just like Dune. I can't even think of what you compare it to. Whereas Shang-Chi, you're comfortable walking in.
Yeah.
And you're going to be entertained, and it looks exciting and fun. Shang-Chi, like I would say maybe double.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're talking about dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just like in the zeitgeist, like in
Shang-Chi.
terms of, all right. I love it. Predictions sure to go wrong.
Yeah. Well, let's chisel this in marble for a future reference.
The light just went off in their studios. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. When we come back, more Rogue Wave podcast.
Want to thank our guest, Kevin Sharp. Now the conventions are back. He'll be out and about doing some press, hopefully for major conventions, which is great. So
good luck. Enjoy that.
I want to thank thank him for his insight, and we're going to definitely have to have him back on as more movies are coming. So I'm excited. Now, Black Widow, Disney Plus or theater? You're going Disney Plus, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you're going Disney Plus. All right. We will be back here next week. We will be talking about Black Widow, and we will be talking about the finale of Loki, and maybe we'll have a surprise guest star, because why not, right?
Because why not?
Let's
just bring people in, yeah.
That's the kind of excitement we have here on Rogue Wave Podcast. Go check out roguematter.com for some really cool ebooks, some comic books, Some artwork from Hassan will be coming out soon. Some stories from me coming out soon. It's all coming together. We will see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.